like to call to order. I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Lancaster County Planning Commission of June 23rd, 2021. It's not on, is it?
No, it's not.
But it says it's on.
Testing, testing. Yeah, mine shows on too.
Hello?
Okay,
on.
I think we're on.
There we go. Okay. I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Lancaster County Planning Commission of June 23rd, 2021. A printed agenda is available outside the hearing room, and a copy of the full agenda, including the staff reports, is available at the front of the chambers with the clerk. The Open Meetings Act is posted just inside the doors at the back of the room. If you parked in the parking garage across the street to the north, the gate is open and no parking coupons are needed. Out of courtesy for those attending this meeting, the commissioners and the staff, cellular phone usage is not permitted in these chambers during any portion of this meeting. We appreciate your cooperation. The Planning Commission action today is final on the following items. 1.3, Special Permit 08021B, and 1.4, Special Permit 21022. Any aggrieved person may appeal final action of the Planning Commission to the City Council or the County Board by filing a notice of appeal with the clerk within 14 days following the action of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission action on all other items is a recommendation to the City Council or County Board. The next item of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held June 9th, 2021.
Move to approve, Campbell.
Second, Joy.
Jerry?
Ball.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Joy.
Yes.
Raymond Yost.
Yes.
Shear.
Yes.
Edgerton.
Yes.
Core.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
The next item of business is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda will be called at the same time and will not be scheduled for a separate public hearing unless there is a request from someone wishing to speak or at the request of a commission member. I will ask Jerry to read all of the consent agenda items into the record. Once those items are read, she will ask if there is anyone wishing to speak. If you wish to speak on an item on the consent agenda, we would ask that you stand and state that item. That item will then be removed from the consent agenda and scheduled as a separate public hearing under Section 3 of today's agenda. All items remaining on the consent agenda will be voted upon in total with a motion for approval. Jerry, will you please call the items on the consent agenda?
Yes, thank you. Item 1.1 is Comprehensive Plan Conformance 21014 to review as to conformance with the 2040 Lincoln Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan, a proposed amendment to the Lincoln Center redevelopment plan to add the atrium redevelopment project, which includes rehabilitation and redevelopment of the atrium building on property generally located between 12th and 13th streets on the north side of N Street. Item 1.2 is change the zone 21019 from R6 Residential District to P Public Use District on property generally located at 1203, 1211, and 1219 C Street, 1226 and 1236 South 12th Street, and 1204, 1210, and 1220 B Street. Item 1.3 is special permit 08021B, an amendment to the special permit to allow for the construction of a covered arena for horse riding with equipment and hay storage and associated waivers to setbacks on property generally located at South 148th and Van Dorn Streets. This is final action on this item unless appealed to the city or the county board within 14 days. Item 1.4 is special permit 21022 to allow for bulk storage of petroleum products in the I-1 Industrial District on property generally located at 1700 Saltillo Road. This is final action on this item unless appealed to the City Council within 14 days. And I would note that there was a staff memo distributed to the Planning Commission dated June 11th identifying revisions and conditions agreed upon by both staff as well as the applicant. Item 1.5 is text amendment 21003, amending the Lincoln Municipal Code section 27.62.110 pertaining to square footage, location, and on-premises alcohol sales for restaurants within the O1 office district. And item 1.6 is text amendment 21004, clarifying and correcting various sections of Chapter 27 of the Lincoln Municipal Code and amending the City of Lincoln design standards for screening and landscaping to add a provision on fences. All of these changes are identified specifically on today's agenda. And then repealing said sections as hitherto existing. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these items?
I don't see any.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting these sites?
I don't think we have any of those either.
Okay. Is there anyone present who would like to speak on any of these consent agenda items? If so, please stand and state the item that you'd like to testify on.
Okay, I would entertain a motion.
I would move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second, Chair.
Jerry?
Okay, Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
I will now ask Jerry to call any requests for deferral received prior to this hearing.
Okay, we have received 3 separate requests from the respective applicants to be considered. A written request was received from the applicant to place the following item on pending until further notice. This is item 2.1, change of zone 08066C, amending the existing Antelope Village PUD to add the mixed-use designation on 2 lots and add density for a residential development with requested waivers on property generally located north of P Street between 22nd and 23rd Streets.
I'd entertain a motion.
Move deferral, Edgerton.
Second, Ryman Yost.
Jerry?
Okay, this is to place on pending until further notice. Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Okay, next we received a written request on behalf of the applicant for a 2-week deferral of item 4.2, use permit 126G to amend the existing use permit with associated waivers to building height and parking for residential uses on Lot 3 on property generally located at Wilderness Woods Place and Executive Woods Drive. This would defer public hearing and action by the Planning Commission to the July 7th hearing.
So moved, Campbell.
Second, Chair.
Jerry?
Okay, Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Is there anyone present today that would like to testify on this item today rather than waiting till July 7th? See
I
none.
don't see anybody.
Okay. Lastly, a written request was received on behalf of the applicant to place the following item on pending until further notice. This is item 5.1, change of zone 04075I to amend the existing Village Gardens planned unit development for the construction of multiple family dwelling units with waivers to adjust height and parking on property generally located at 56th Street and Pine Lake Road.
I move to place this item on pending. Shear.
Second, Joy.
Okay, before I call the motion, I would just note that Commissioner Campbell has declared a conflict of interest on this item and will be abstaining from voting on the request. Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Abstain.
Okay. Joy?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried, 6-0.
We will now proceed to public hearing. Prior to staff making a brief presentation, each staff person should state their name, agency, and address. The applicant will then be requested to present his or her testimony, followed by those who wish to testify in support, followed by those who wish to testify in opposition. The staff will then be given an opportunity to respond to the testimony, and then the applicant shall have an opportunity for rebuttal. Each person testifying should state their name and address and shall have 5 minutes to speak unless additional time is requested and granted. The timer will go off after 4 minutes. The clerk will then indicate you have 1 minute remaining to wrap up your testimony. Once the final minute has lapsed, the clerk will indicate that your time is up. If during your testimony you have copies of documents or materials you would like distributed to the Planning Commission members and/or included as part of the record, please provide them to the clerk. The Planning Commission will vote immediately at the close of the public hearing unless the commission votes to defer action or continue the public hearing. Jerry, will you please call the first public hearing item?
Yes. Item 4.1 is change of zone 21020 south of downtown planned unit development from R6, R7, R8, O1, and B3 to R6, R7, R8, O1, and B3 planned unit development with a development plan which proposes to modify standards of the underlying zoning district on property generally located between A and H Streets and 10th and 17th Streets. Staff recommendation is conditional approval. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed?
I don't see any.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting the site?
I don't think we have any of those either. All right, staff.
Good afternoon, members of the commission. Stephanie Rouse with the Lincoln Lancaster County Planning Department, 555 South 10th Street, Lincoln, Nebraska, 68508. This request is for a planned unit development for the south of downtown neighborhood. You can see the boundaries here in the image. Generally, on the west boundary, 10th Street, eastern side would be 17th Street, southern side would be A Street, and then generally the alley north of H Street on the north side. The planned unit development came out of the multi-year process to develop the South of Downtown Redevelopment and Strategic Plan. This is carrying forward some of those recommendations as well as incorporating the public engagement that was done during that time period. So the overlay district doesn't change any of the underlying zoning. It maintains the current residential and the 3B3 zoning districts as well as a little bit of R1, but it does allow some flexibility on and additional uses on top of that. The matrix that's included within the staff report shows the different uses that are proposed to be added to this district. We divided it into 3 different sub-districts. So starting with the southern end of the neighborhood is the neighborhood district. There's no new commercial uses proposed in that area, but some expanded some more lenient regulations for existing home occupations and urban gardens. Moving up into the mixed-use district that's transitioning towards downtown, that area would be allowed to do some small-scale food and beverage production, office use, and personal services in addition to what would be allowed in the neighborhood district. And then the downtown transitional, which is limited to the northern end of the district that kind of buffers downtown, would be allowed the most new commercial uses. So that also could have restaurants with on-premise alcohol sales, retail sales, banks, and theaters as well. Now, each of these uses would be limited in their size and scope, and based on that would have a different approval process. So if this PUD were approved, a number of uses would be allowed by right, such as a 3,000 square foot restaurant or a personal service at that size. If it exceeds that, it would have to go to the planning director for an administrative amendment to the PUD for the allowed use. And then if it exceeds the criteria listed within the approved PUD, then it would have to go through the full amendment process again. One other big change that the PUD makes is trying to help out some of the non-standard lots in the neighborhood. There's nearly 200 lots that don't meet current zoning regulations, making it difficult to rehab or redevelop those lots. So for single and 2 family, we're proposing reduced setbacks, lot area, and lot width to make it a little bit easier to rehab and expand a home or to rebuild a home on that lot. That is a summary of the PUD, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a couple for you. I know that we have received some concerns about kind of those small scale, food and production businesses. So I want to make sure that I'm understanding, and so that we can kind of make sure that everyone understands out in the public too, that The 3,000 and 4,000 square footage limitations are kind of designed to help keep that small scale. Am I on the right track?
Correct. Yeah, we were looking at some of the existing commercial businesses within the neighborhood and the size of their footprints, and a lot of the ones like on 11th Street, Cultiva, for example, is just over 3,000 square feet. So looking at keeping the scale within what's already in the neighborhood.
I noticed that there were some changes to the signage requirements. Are those any different than before?
They're very similar to what would be allowed in a commercial district today, but because all these uses are allowed with residential underlying zoning, we had to build it into the PUD.
You talk about a theater use, but, and I'll have to go back to I thought I marked what page, but I didn't. Can you kind of give an example of what, because this wouldn't be like first run movies, can you give an example of what you guys envision for that?
Yeah, so during the engagement, more supportive art galleries and different flexible spaces and event spaces to kind of support the neighborhood residents was envisioned. So that's why we have theaters, but movie theaters aren't allowed, but you could do something like a live broadcast or plays or things like that as part of the theater.
So live broadcast of sporting events or?
Is more envisioned as the kind of new technology of live podcasting, recording, but also having a small audience at that live broadcast.
Okay. The accountant in me noticed that in bullet point or number 6, you list the percentages, but they don't add up to 100%. So I'm wondering what the other 12% is.
I'd have to go back and look at that. I pulled the numbers out of the redevelopment and strategic plan. They went in depth in there. I think I maybe left out right away.
Well, right away is
Or
in
is
there,
it-
and it
it's in
says
there?
that's 45.6%. So
I'd have to get back to you on
Okay.
that.
that's fine. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Applicant. So are you guys considered the applicant, or do we want?
They're on Zoom.
Okay.
Yes.
Sean, are you out there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon. Yes, my name is Sean Reba, and I am the applicant. I'm with South of Downtown Community Development Organization. Wanted to just say thank you, Chairperson Tracy Core and members of the Planning Commission. Thank you so much for your time. I'm here on behalf of the South of Downtown Community Development Organization to encourage the Planning Commission adopt the South of Downtown Planned Unit Development proposal we have here in front of you. As you recall, or maybe you don't, late last year, the Commission adopted the South of Downtown Redevelopment and Strategic Plan. And as Stephanie had mentioned, this PUD proposal is a natural implementation step of that redevelopment and strategic plan. So it just seems like it's natural. A little bit about our organization real quick and kind of how we got here. We're a not-for-profit that promotes and supports comprehensive community development efforts, and they include workforce development, housing, neighborhood safety, placemaking. We do a lot of advocacy, community building and organizing. And we're doing all of those things with existing leadership, the residents' leadership, those living in the near South and Everett neighborhoods. We've been the lead partner on this. We were the lead partner with the redevelopment and strategic plan. Not any different here with the planned unit development. In order for us to engage and center the neighborhood residents' lived experience in this work, we've been the lead entity in reaching out and listening to the neighborhood's concerns, issues, strengths, dreams, schemes, you name it. We've been really listening and trying to have all the conversations that we possibly can. And besides knocking on hundreds of residents' doors and interviewing neighborhood businesses and not-for-profits, we've been teaming very closely with the City of Lincoln to do a lot of co-hosting, co-presenting, I think we had a number of, I think it was about 5 community conversations, lots and lots of community presentations, soliciting feedback. Also, our organizations held lots of block parties, special events, all kinds of things to really learn more about the needs of the community. So how we got here, that extensive outreach process, I guess it's been over the last 4 years, has really guided this process and has really informed this proposal. And March, April, May, these last months have not been any different. As the redevelopment and strategic plan says, we drafted the PUD based on that plan, and we've been seeking feedback and input from all kinds of stakeholders and residents to help refine the proposal that you see here before you. I guess I just wanted to make this really, I wanted to make this statement real quick. It's a strong point. I think our organization is really committed to ensuring that the existing neighborhood benefits from this PUD, and we're very much committed to monitoring and amending the PUD over time as necessary to ensure that it continues to be a positive tool for the neighborhood. We hope to work with our friends here at the city and residents and stakeholders to help with those, to monitor and to amend. Again, this is a starting point. It's not perfect, but we have to start somewhere, and we have to work out these kinks. So that's really important to us. And then finally, I'm going to just kind of conclude here real quick. Again, we're asking you all to support this very creative, we think it's kind of a fun, creative proposal, has some, for some zoning solutions that are unique, that are proposed in this PUD. So we're just asking you again to support it. And again, I will say it, there are 5,200 folks that live in this neighborhood, and there are many other stakeholders. So we are committed and dedicated and have been doing this work. We will work with residents, advocacy groups, not-for-profits, property owners, private sector partners, developers, philanthropic community, the city of Lincoln. We will do everything we can to implement this plan, the PUD, in a way that continues to build on the existing community assets and provides equitable opportunities for all the residents in the south of downtown. So again, I'm here to ask you and encourage you, Planning Commission, to adopt the south of downtown PUD.
Sean,
And with that, I'll be quiet. Thank you.
Sean, for the record, could I have you state your address, please?
Yes, it's 1247 South 11th Street.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Reba? No. Okay. All right. Thanks, Sean.
Can I make one final comment?
Sure.
I would just like to simply say thank you so very much to the planning department, specifically Stephanie Roos and Colin Christopher, for all their hard work, their expertise, their knowledge. Without them, we would not have been able to get this to where it's at today. So I just wanted to simply go on record to say thank you so very much for the partnership.
Thank you. All right. Testimony in support of this application. Any testimony in support? Okay. Any neutral testimony? Any testimony in opposition? Come on up.
My name is Mary Roseberry Brown. That's MaryRoseberry-Brown. I believe some of you already, okay. And I live at 1423 F Street, and I have a copy for you.
Thank you very much.
Well, I have studied this proposal, and I have some great concern about it. First of all, I'd like to start with some corrections to how the proposal is written. The proposal states that that describes the transitional northernmost zone, which is roughly between F Street and little north of H Street. It describes it as a transition from downtown, quote, into a neighborhood. It is a mix of apartments and commercial uses with several single-family attached units. The correction is that this area is not a transition into a neighborhood, but it is a neighborhood in itself. It contains hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of residences. It's residential. And these people enjoy living close to the downtown. They enjoy living in apartments or single-family homes. And we need to consider them as a neighborhood and not something that can be glossed over as transition into a neighborhood. The commercial uses, the description says it's commercial uses. The commercial uses currently are limited to business areas. And the people who live in residences enjoy living in their residence and not having something next door that might be disturbing them. The description says several single-family attached units, which I found out means something like townhouses. I have counted 17 single-family homes unattached to any other structure that are also in that area. And I didn't count them, but at least twice as many duplexes. So it's highly residential. Perhaps the writers of the proposal were not aware of how residential it is. The second correction, the proposed mixed-use district just to the south, the proposed transitional district, is inscribed as, again, transitions from the more commercial area. Like I said, the commercial area to the north is mostly residential, to the primary residential area to the south. The mixed-use area is also, I didn't count them, but highly residential. Hundreds and hundreds of residences. The commercial uses are currently limited to the business area along 13th Street, and they are not mixed in with the residences. And then the third description in the proposal says the area to the south is finally described as, quote, the neighborhood district, which is residential, as though the ones up north aren't residential. As was stated earlier, the other two proposed areas also are highly residential. Okay, now that's the corrections. My next point is that one of the proposed uses for the proposed mixed use and transitional area is a bank. And I think we all would agree that a bank is highly commercial, and I believe it should be limited to a commercial area rather than mixed in with these residences in the transitional and the mixed use area. It just kind of changes the whole feel of the neighborhood. My next concern is restaurants with outdoor seating and alcohol would be allowed within 3 feet of a property line adjacent to a residence. And given the highly residential area, the multiple duplexes, 17 single-family homes, I believe the alcohol and outdoor use should be limited. I would not want to be sitting in my backyard.
1 minute, please.
Oh dear, could I have additional time?
Sure, just maybe a minute or so.
Okay, thank you. I would not be sitting in my backyard right next to an inebriated diner sitting 3 feet away, and that should be changed. It states that alcohol and food beverages would be allowed. I think there should be a lot more stipulations on size and amount of production. It could turn into factory production. And I suggest if Lincoln needs more commercial development spaces, we encourage businesses to fill in those vacant spaces along East O Street between downtown and 40th. Those need to be filled in. They're vacant. And next, I've been told by a representative of the planning department that if the proposed uses are approved, further approval would not be necessary. In other words, in the transitional area, the mixed-use area, any of these uses could go in without notification to the residents and with no scrutiny of effect on the neighborhood. The boundaries, both the transitional district and the mixed-use district are, they go into the capital environs. The character of them is very different from the other part, but I'll skip over that. My final point, and this is the most important one, is that rather than downgrading and disparaging the area between F Street and H Street and D Street and F Street by calling it transitional into a neighborhood, we as a community need to come together and cherish these areas. There, like I say, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people live there. We need to protect them. They're close to the Capitol. They're close to the governor's mansion. They're close to downtown. And we need to make these areas the pride of Lincoln. We need to be extremely careful about what goes into these areas. Because as we know from other cities, areas can become downgraded. And my main concern, if we willy-nilly just say, okay, well, this is a transitional area, it's not important, things can be put in there, we don't need to worry about it. That's going to downgrade the area. It's not going to become a desirable residential area like the people who like to live in apartments now. They don't want to live next to some of these things. They wouldn't want to. And we need to be even more careful about this northernmost area than what goes in farther to the south, because it's right near downtown and we want to keep that strong. And we want to have a strong residential area right next to downtown. A lot of people love to live in apartments and work downtown. And we want to keep that attractive rather than downgrading it into commercial. It can be mixed in with the residences. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for considering what I'm saying. And it would mean that we need to rethink and rewrite this whole thing and how we're describing the areas, and that we're being very careful about what that we're taking care of these areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other testimony in opposition? All right. Staff questions. Okay. Applicant rebuttal. Sean, are you still out there?
I am. Can you hear me? Excellent. I just want to simply say, I want to say thank you to Mary Rose for taking the time to read the plan and to come out and give testimony. It's very much appreciated, and we see it as a gift, and we appreciate the input. And to her point, it is a very complicated process. This has been a very long, pretty extensive process that we've gone through to inform the plan and the PUD. It is in direct response to the many, many things that we heard from the community. And we know that this is not, I don't think it's even possible to come up with 100% consensus with the many constituents. But I just want to simply say that, again, this is kind of a beginning. This is our proposal. It's our best proposal that we have at this time. It's the most informed, and we do understand that the proposal will continue to evolve as we will continue to do our outreach by reaching out and working with various stakeholders. And we're just going to hopefully do our best and make sure that this best serves the existing residents and businesses. And if it doesn't, we hope that we will then come right back to you and propose amendments and just act accordingly to make sure this is really benefiting those that live in the neighborhood. So again, I just wanted to simply say thank you, Mary Rose, for coming out. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean.
I would move that we close the public hearing.
Second, Edgerton.
Jerry?
Okay, Ball,
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
Shear.
Yes.
Edgerton.
Yes.
Core.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
I would move that we approve change of zone 21020.
Second, Ball.
Discussion.
What Mary has brought up it has some validity to it, but I think what's happened over the last 4 years is they've tried to divine future areas that would allow some of the things to happen closer to the downtown area that couldn't happen further south in the solidly residential areas. And I think it's a good attempt on their part to try and control where things could happen, but yet to also invite some of those things to happen within the neighborhood. So for that reason, I will be supporting it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to support it, support the motion also. I want to make a point from my reading the proposal or the item and having been briefed on it a couple weeks ago. I don't read it as the references to transition or transition areas being negative. I think that sometimes we think of that in a negative way, but in this case, just to pick up on what Dick was saying, I think that everybody wants to have this continue to be a positive, strong area, which is generally heavy on residential use. That can't go away. This thing will be a failure if that goes away. It's just bringing other things in a positive way in a transitional area where other things can happen successfully. So I want to make that point. The other thing I want to just mention is that we've heard testimony today from the applicant, from staff, about how this is a proposal that can be adjusted, can change, and I think that's all good. But I don't think we should think that that means that this is a loose kind of proposal. It's not a loose proposal at all. There's a process. The engagement process has been really good to get us to this point, but there's a process to make changes as they are needed in the future. But it's not just a willy-nilly idea out there that we're hoping will work. I think there's been a lot of thought that's gone into it. So I think it's a very serious proposal, and I think it will be very successful because of how everybody thinks of this as needing to be tweaked for good in the future as it needs to be. So.
I will also be supporting this change of zone and the development of the PUD. I want to thank Sean and the South of Downtown team. I think the process that they have used to work so closely with the residents of the neighborhood, developers, small business owners, schools, everybody in that neighborhood to develop this, and working with the planning department, I think has been creative and really positive and focused on assets, and I think is a great model for other neighborhoods in our city. I too read the transitional district as a description of the flow and not as a designation of some sort of blight or it was problematic, but it was more about the flow of, and there have been some really great models in other cities of kind of redevelopment of areas near downtown, and I see this really encouraging walkability, biking, some of those things that I think will be really positive, and I'm super excited about being a part of experiencing that development and change.
I also will be supporting this, and as my fellow commissioners said, and on record, it gives them an opportunity to say how positive an approach the transitional term has been. And I just really feel like this will be great for the area, and like you said, a great example for others.
Great. I agree with my fellow planning commissioners. I think this is an interesting concept, and I'm anxious to see how it's going to work out. Sometimes I think we might get hung up on the titles or the labels that we place on things, and maybe they aren't the perfect label, but I think that the intent behind it is what Mary Roseberry has in mind. I think that it's going to carry that out. It's just that maybe the titles don't match up with how she thinks about them. So I look forward to seeing how this plays out, and I think it'll be a positive change, and I truly appreciate everyone's work on this. I know it's been a long time. Jerry?
Okay, this is for the conditional approval of change of zone 210220. Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
At this time, anyone wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so. Okay, I entertain a motion.
Move to adjourn, Edgerton.
Second, Campbell.
Jerry?
Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.